Hi Saffron. Hello. Hi. Good to see you. I'm pretty excited about this morning. It's a topic that's dear to my heart. Just a couple of minutes. Hi Katrina. Hello. Apollo Bay. Hi Bettina. Hi Susan. Good to see you. So good morning. Oh. Okay, so I think just a couple more seconds and then we can get going with the live feed. I've got our gardeners hosing out the back, so I hope that's not going to worry anyone. It's not super loud for me, but hopefully it's not super loud for you. Okay. So, welcome everyone. My name's Kate Dubois and I'm going to talk to you about depression, anxiety and fear. And right out of the gate, I want to tell you that I'm not a psychologist. I don't have training in psychology at all, but what I do have extensive training in is Hatha Yoga philosophy and also experience. So my experience is that I have lived with depression. I've lived with anxiety and panic attacks and for a long period of time, and I've also lived with fear. And so I feel from that place I can speak with authority, and from the place of my Hatha Yoga practice and the knowledge that I've gained from philosophy, I can also share that with you. So let's get started. So first of all, I want to speak to depression, actually. My first experience with depression in my life was when I had my first child, my son Dion, and I was, hey Renee, I was a very healthy mother, healthy pregnancy, just, you know, I was thriving in every way, and my son was born, and about 6 months after he was born, we moved away to the middle of the middle of the Eyre Peninsula in South Australia. For any people watching, that's a very remote area with 200 people in the district. So not just in the township, but in the district. And there wasn't a lot of socialization for me. I fell into a state of depression, and at the time the doctors called it postnatal depression. In fact, for me, I used to go to the doctors. I remember sitting in the doctors crying and just pouring my heart out, and almost, it was to the point of catatonic. There were definitely times that I had thought of ending my own life, and also ending my children's. So I'll just put this microphone a little bit closer. That time, so that was Dion. And so it was quite serious depression, but I was absolutely 100% sure that I didn't actually have depression, that I was tired. So I had a little baby, and I was away from all of my friends and my family and any support networks that I had in place for my whole life. And I was getting really bad sleep. Unfortunately, no support from my partner, who was working 6 12-hour days. And it just wasn't working for my body. The other thing that wasn't happening for me was I wasn't really nourishing my body with food and supplements, and I really didn't have a great diet back in those days. I thought that I was healthy, but with the knowledge that I know now, I know that I definitely wasn't healthy. But I'll wrap that up. But it happened again when I gave birth to Camille. So 2.5 years later, I fell back into depression when I had this beautiful baby girl, gorgeous little son. I'd had experienced about 18 months or so of what I thought was healing myself from the depression. And there it was again when I had my daughter. So again, I was under this duress or stress of not getting enough sleep, and I was deeply, deeply depressed. And again, had lots of thoughts of ending my own life, and also, unfortunately for little Camille, of ending hers. And it wasn't because I didn't want her, it was because I just didn't have the capacity to cope. So I'll just leave that for a moment, and then I'll come back to, I think, why I think that I was in a state of depression, and this may help you. But through yoga, I have learned, through understanding the workings of the mind and the body, that we are not just a body, and we are not just a mind, and we're not just a brain, and we're not just this energetic system where things are working in isolation. We certainly can isolate parts of our body to talk about them, but to think that anything works in isolation is crazy. We know enough in science, and this science comes from Ayurveda, which is 10,000 years old, as far as we know, probably a lot longer. They can date it back to some figurines that they've found that date back to 10,000 years old. So Ayurveda was the beginning of science, and in Ayurveda, in Hatha Yoga, they talk about koshas, and koshas are sheaths or layers of energetics that we hold in our body and around our body, and all of these koshas actually have their own attachment to chakras. So the first one is the Annamaya kosha, which is attached to the root chakra. So anything that is going on in the physical body will affect the Annamaya kosha. And so what happens when we have things going on in our life, for example, that are going to unseat the root chakra? The root chakra is our place of stability, our place of knowing where we belong and feeling like we have a tribe and feeling like we're part of that tribe. This is our real sense of belonging, this real rooted in, I know where I come from, I know where I stand, I know that I'm supported by the universe, I'm supported by the people around me. So basically it's our feeling of support, right? So if your root chakra is not working properly, your physical body will start to feel that. And you know, we have a lot of people in the West that have a lot of stiffness in the hips, for example. If you ever sit down to try and cross your legs, you'll feel that you have a lot of deep stiffness in your hips. And that's because we actually hold a lot of our fear and this energy in our hips actually. It's a place where sometimes we feel stuck, where we don't feel like we can move from that place. I'm not sure if that's sounding familiar for you. So just jumping back from my experience when I was first of all in the middle of the South Australian wheat belt area, and then moving from there we actually went to Kalgoorlie, so the middle of the desert, really where I knew nobody again, and I was even further away from home. I really lost my connection to the earth. I lost my connection to my people. I lost my sense of being able to not be stuck and to actually go and be where I actually needed to be at the time. So I had this real lack of stability in my life, and that started to affect my physical body, definitely in aches and pains and lower back stuff going on for me, but certainly 100% in the hips. And I had this sense of heaviness in my hips actually for a really, really long time, and I didn't really understand it then because back then I hadn't been introduced to Hatha Yoga. So the next kosha is the Manamaya kosha, which is actually attached to the mental body. So the Manamaya kosha is attached to the sacral chakra. So our sacrum sits right above the crack of our bum, basically, and is anything between the navel and the pubic bone. So our sacral chakra. Okay, so the thing about the sacrum is that it comes from the word sacre, which is a Latin word, and sacre means sacred, right? So something about the ancient yogis knew that the sacrum was sacred, and that if your sacrum is out of balance, which it often goes out of balance, the sacrum actually looks like this. It's two sets of bones that are joined together, and initially physicians used to think that they were actually fused together. They're not. They have this little bit of material in between them, and if your sacrum goes out of whack and it just goes like this, 100% sure your mind is going to be out of whack. So your sacrum is really, really speaking to your mental stability. If your sacrum is out of whack, then your mind's going to be out of whack. But for sure, if your mind's going to be out of whack, then your sacrum will be out of whack too. So you've got to kind of work out which one is causing the other. But so we know that about the sacrum. Now the sacral chakra is Swadhisthana. That is all about our ability to be free and creative and move and flow in life. And so if you're not feeling like you have the ability to flow and move in life and be free and creative, then you're going to be really blocked in this chakra. So just think about the energy moving up. So all of a sudden you're blocked in your root chakra, and we know that energy rises up the spine to bring illumination to the mind and this brightness that we have. And so if you're stuck in this root chakra and the energy is not really able to move up, it's going to get caught, particularly if you have feelings of lack of flow and lack of freedom and creativity in this place, in the Swadhisthana, in the sacral chakra. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So again, going back to my story, just referring back to that, that I had that sensation. I was stuck in the desert with nobody that I knew, and I felt like I wasn't able to be in my flow. That doesn't mean it wasn't right for anyone else. It just wasn't right for me and my body and my mind. So from that time, I remember my mind being really, really off kilter, and I actually was having like really strange imaginings about stuff, like even, you know, that maybe, this sounds absolutely crazy, right? that my partner was putting sleeping tablets into my drinks or things. You know, it was like, it was just, the mind just wasn't functioning as well as it could. And again, I'll speak to the fact I wasn't really having a great diet at that time, trying to look after two little children. So then moving on from the sacral chakra to the solar plexus, the Manipura. Manipura means illustrious gem in yoga speak, right? In Sanskrit. So this illustrious gem, this light that is inside of us, if it's not able to shine, then you're going to have the opposite of that. You're going to have this dullness, right, about you. You're going to have this lack of the ability to shine. You're going to be a little more dull. And this is our place of, I'd like to say personal power, but it's where we give out our energy, and it's kind of where we can bring energy into ourselves. You often see people who have a parent or a carer or somebody that's been bullying them, their shoulders will be like this. And what that is doing is actually protecting their heart for sure, but it's also a sign that they don't have the ability to shine, because when somebody is bullying them, it's definitely taking away their ability to shine. So the same thing in the opposite is sometimes we see people striving through life like this, where they're just all full power, and they don't appear to really be giving a shit about anyone else. They've got this massive confidence. And sometimes what happens with these people is they're shining their light too much and giving it out too much, where there's not actually enough energy stored for themselves to be able to nourish themselves. And so back to my situation before, when you take away that sense of being able to be grounded and connected and feeling of that you're with your tribe and your family, and then you have lost that sense of being able to flow, and then you're moving on up to all of your power is being taken away from you because you're not you haven't given yourself permission perhaps to be part of the decision making. Then we can start to see that energy is not moving up the spine towards this space of a luminosity, which is the mind when it's in its fullest state. The next one is the heart chakra, the Vinamaya kosha, and this is deeply connected to the spiritual and intuitive body. So in yoga, we talk about the heart energy being in the center of the chest. Right to the right of that, just a little bit to the right, is where our soul resides. So this is where we really feel things in our heart when we know that it's coming from our soul energy. And a lot of people will say, I feel that, like I really feel that, and put their hand to their chest. And that's because that felt sense is coming from the heart. You know, as we're moving up the spine, the energy, if it's blocked in the lower three chakras, it's going to be really hard to get the energy required at the heart space to feel love and compassion, and not for others, even just for yourself. So you're starting to see the unfolding here of how depression can happen if we are in a situation where we are stuck in our lower chakra. And I would like to say that often depression starts from being situational. So for example, you are in a work situation where you're not being valued, or you're being bullied, or you've been given the sack for no seeming reason for your, you can see how people can start to fall into states of depression, because the first thing that's going to go for you is that sense of stability, that sense of groundedness, that sense of belonging, and your ability to feel connected to people and to your tribe. So at work, often people, they find their tribe in their working community, for example, okay? So again, we're up to the heart chakra. Take it to the throat chakra, energy rising up, and the Ananda Maya kosha, which is all about bliss, peace, and love. The throat chakra is about our ability to be able to say what we need to say, like what is right for you, our ability to be able to communicate what our needs are. And again, if all of the other chakras are blocked and we're not able to speak our truth, what's going to happen? Our bliss and love and peace body, our Ananda Maya kosha, is going to unravel. And again, that will be speaking to us having depressive thoughts, okay? I hope this is making sense. I'll recap it in a minute. Beyond the throat chakra, we have the third eye, which is our intuition. And this is our place of deep knowing and our connection to what is right for us. There's no right or wrong for anyone. There's nobody that can get to say I'm right and you're wrong. That doesn't happen. But you can say what's right for you. And if you haven't been able to say what's right for you, then this is going to get blocked, okay? The third eye, this intuitive part of you will get blocked. And then beyond that, we have the crown of the head, which is this place where we receive all of our information and our connectedness to the universe, to this really beautiful, big idea that we are divinity. We're not seeking divinity, we already are. We are connected to everyone and everything, and that we are safe and loved and held. Okay, so if we're blocked in the root chakra, we're blocked in the sacral chakra, we're blocked in the manipura, the heart, the throat, this one that is complete intuition, and then of course we're not going to feel like we're connected to everybody and everything in the universe, and know that we are safe and loved, and know that we are divinity already. We're gonna totally, that's all fried, it's all gone. So what do we do about this? What can we do? We need to really find somebody that works with chakra clearing. There are many people that do chakra dance, which is brilliant at clearing chakras. And that would be one of the things that I would suggest. I've got a fantastic music list that I can send to you if you want one. So just message me afterwards anytime. I'm happy to share on my music with you. That's not a problem. But get up and dance and start to move some of this energy. The way that we work when we're moving energy is not from the top down. So you may become aware that your crown chakra is out, or you're just feeling not intuitive anymore, or you feel quite stuck here and you can hear it in your voice. I know it myself. I get really warbly in my voice when I feel like I'm stuck and I'm not actually able to speak my truth. You'll know when your heart chakra's out, because you'll be feeling lack of love. So it could be like, nobody loves me, or I'm not deserving of love, or or maybe lacking a little compassion for other people. You'll know when your creativity is out, because you just won't be in a flow state. Everything will feel hard and like you're bashing against the wall all the time. When you're in your flow state, when that's moving, everything starts to open up for you and flow. And then the root chakra, for sure, you'll feel just ungrounded. You'll feel like my feet aren't on the earth. I'm all up in the head here, and I just can't connect to anything particularly solid that's meaningful for me. So if you're going to do any chakra dancing, for example, I would just start at the base and then work up. And the base is deep, earthy, tribal sort of tunes, like just stomping your feet and jumping up and down, and kind of African dancing type stuff, and really shift that energy with the intention that you just want it gone. The base chakra, the root chakra, Muladhara, is about elimination. It's about getting rid of all of that shit. Stop carrying it around, because all of the stuff that we're carrying around is not serving us. And I spoke about it the other day in limiting beliefs, but a lot of our limiting beliefs are born, or all of our limiting beliefs are born from our past experiences, where we've actually experienced something and our mind has interpreted in a certain way. Remember that the mind is 100% illusory, and we can't be listening to mind. What we need to be listening to is the intuition. So that's my way to overcome depression. I know that there's plenty of other ways. I'm not anti-medication. I definitely took medication in the beginning because I had no other resources available to me, and it helped. It got me through a period of time. I then went on to herbal remedies, which worked really well as well. But for the most part, for sure, to overcome depression, and I know what it's like to be in that black hole and not be able to, hi Jen, to actually come out of that black hole. I know what it's like. I've been there, and I know that I've also managed to come out of it and stay out of it. Depression isn't something that you are, it is something that is happening to you, and it's just like any other disease. It can be cured and it can be overcome. So I'd love to share that with you. I may even get time, I hope, to write it down so that people can really understand that there is a deep connection to every single part of our body, and if we are out in a certain part of our body, then it's an indication for us that something's not right in that part of our body. So if we're having problem with our heart, then our heart chakra is not working efficiently, and we need to look at that. And for sure, it's often something to do with really being wounded in the heart. Okay, I know I had an experience once where I was full of grief with the loss of my brother, and I had a frozen shoulder, and it was through a chakra healing that I actually healed the frozen shoulder. After 18 months of not being able to get rid of it, I got up bawling my eyes out in the middle of a chakra healing when I came to the heart space, because when you're in utero, your little arm buds come out from the heart space. That's where they grow from, which is quite beautiful to think of. But so the energy here affects your lungs and affects that sense of grief. So now I want to move on to anxiety. So anxiety is from unresolved trauma or emotional an emotional upset. So we don't have to have deep trauma in our life. And I don't know how you define trauma, but I know that once I was in a situation where there was a siege going on, and there was a small child and a younger, 10-year-old child in a house. The police were called. We were outside waiting. The person had a knife to the child's body, was threatening to kill the child or both of the children, and I was there witnessing it all and felt absolutely powerless to be able to stop it. And eventually, thankfully, the perpetrator tried to get away with the baby in the car, had a car accident. Nobody was injured, but the police were able to secure the situation. But after that, I just started to get these massive full-blown anxiety and panic attacks. And I had no idea. I absolutely had no idea that it was related to that situation. Now, you could say that was a trauma, but nothing was actually happening to me. I was witnessing something. So I would say it was a deep emotional upset, and I guess I had a bit of post-traumatic stress, really. That's probably what now, when I reflect on it, I'd say that's what it was. But so I had anxiety, and the thing about anxiety is it can be gripping when it actually is happening to you and you're in the middle of a full-blown panic attack. It's really hard to see your way out of it. But to even think that you've thought your way into it somehow is really, really, too much to bear, to think that we could have created this situation from our illusory minds. So what happens is the illusory mind and the subconscious work together. And so we experience something in life where we see, smell, sense, or taste, or hear something. It comes into our mind. Our mind looks to our memory to see if we've experienced something like it before, even remotely like it. And then when the decision is made that yes, we have, then mind goes to the filing cabinet of the brain, and in that filing cabinet of the brain, it digs around and says, right, we're going to file that in that part of the brain because it's exactly like the last time I was traumatized or experienced that really harsh emotion. Okay? What happens is, I talked about this in the video the other day though, is that most of the time our mind is attaching to the memory of something, but of course every situation is completely different from the one before. Every situation. So it's even as horrible as it sounds, but if you've been raped twice, and I experienced this. The first perpetrator is nothing like the second perpetrator. They're completely different people with their own set of fucked up issues, to be honest. So that is, our mind though just makes that the same file path in the brain, and then the brain stores that as a trauma. Okay, so once the brain has stored that as a trauma, then we start to get chemical reactions in the brain, which then affect the whole body. So remembering that we have this whole body that is affected by our thoughts, and then the way that we file our thoughts in our brain, and then the brain releases chemicals to the body, to the kidneys, to the liver, to the thyroid. We have these flood of hormones racing through our body that wreak havoc over time. And because the mind is speaking to the subconscious mind, and we're just talking from this lower mind situation, then we can constantly be in a place of anxiety without even really knowing it. Until it becomes a full-blown kind of panic attack. And I think the body starts to get used to being in a state of anxiousness. For example, when I was 16, I actually went to a seminar, and this guy said, he said, why, I think you should get rid of everything negative out of your lives. He was speaking to an auditorium of 200 young up-and-coming change makers and achievers. And he said, first thing to do is get rid of your alarm clock. So I did. He then said, get rid of your family and friends that knock you all the time. The ones that go, why are you buying a car? Or why are you buying a pool? Or why are you doing that? Like, only hang around with the people that lift your energy, not the ones that put you down. That was a little harder, I must admit. But the third thing he said is stop watching the news and reading newspapers. And at the age of 16, I stopped. And so I was able to free myself up of the anxiety that we get when we expose ourselves to mainstream media. And I'm sure you're all feeling that at the moment, because it's just, we're being flooded by it. And we are topping up our little anxiety tanks all the time by exposing ourselves to that. You could say I've lived, I'm 54 now, for all of that period of time in complete ignorance. Well, I feel like I've achieved a lot in my life. I support a lot of people. I understand a lot about world politics, but I don't watch mainstream media and I don't read newspapers. And I've influenced my children not to too. And I feel that they're both very happy, healthy, and grounded kids. So anxiety is about unresolved trauma or emotional issues that haven't been resolved. But when they roll on into a panic attack, that usually happens when we have projected ourselves or into an imagined future, or we've been reminded of something from the past. So when we're reminded of something from the past, for example, from our memory, when I said before that we hear, see, sense, smell, or taste something, and it comes into our memory and our memory looks to lower mind, we have the opportunity here, and it's called free will. We've all been born with it. We're the only animals, I believe, on the planet that have, to take that thought from the lower mind to the higher mind and say, okay, this is a completely new situation. This is different from the one before. I have a choice here to make a call on this, whether or not to file that in the filing cabinet of the last trauma or make a new file from this. And so if you're making a new file from that, then you have the opportunity to see it completely different. And then your body, from that filing cabinet that affects our chemicals and our hormones, that file, that effect on your body will be completely different. So what do we do about anxiety? First of all, we stop exposing ourselves to things that are creating anxiety in us that we don't even know is happening. This is all happening at the subconscious level, and start connecting into the conscious mind. We operate from the conscious mind, most of us, about 5% of the time. And really, the only time that we're asleep is when we're awake, and the only time that we're awake, which means in our conscious mind, is when we're asleep. So when we're asleep, we're actually in our conscious mind, and you'll notice in your dreams that your dreams are going through all of the activities of the day and going to the filing cabinet and making sense of it and just kind of rearranging it all. That's the conscious mind doing that in the background. The subconscious mind is mostly unaware, and so it doesn't understand when it's being affected by all of these things. So even when we see, sense, taste, smell, something coming in from these 5 senses, or 6 senses, because I'd say the felt sense, this gut feeling is another sense. So when we feel something coming in from that, we're not even aware of it. It could be a whiff of perfume, or it could be we pass past a sign that's got a name on it or something that just triggers something in us to remember that event. The good news is with rapid eye movement therapy, you can get rid of anxiety. That absolutely works beautifully in breaking that synapses of that memory, the way that you filed it in your brain, for sure, 100%. But anxiety is sinister. It's very hard to get to the bottom of, because again, it's a subconscious mind, so we don't really often remember even when it first happens. So what we need to do is say, when was the first time I felt anxious? When was really sit with that, even meditate on it. When was the first time I felt anxious? And then go back to then. And then maybe you'll start to see a thread to another time that perhaps you've forgotten about because it was stored away in a traumatic part of the brain or in the subconscious, and you weren't able to access it. When you're going into these full-blown sort of panic attacks, the best way to overcome them is to ground yourself. Sit on a seat, put your feet on the floor, feel your hips and the weight of your hips on the chair, feel the weight of your feet on the earth, and really feel that energy from the earth coming up, supporting you. So you're sitting in a chair, feeling fully supported. And then close your eyes, or open your eyes, I guess. Think about 5 things that you can see. Really feel the energy of those things that you can see in the room. And then you can close your eyes for the rest if you like. Try to hear 5 things. If you can't hear 5 things, make one up. Do a little burp or something. Or maybe just make it 3. But then 5 things that you can feel. So the clothes against my skin, the hair against my face, the saliva in my mouth, my legs against the chair, my feet against the ground. We can find 5 things, right? And then really the final one is the 5 things that we can hear. And that could be really hard if you're out in nature somewhere. But I guarantee you, once you've gone through that cycle of your senses, you will actually, I think I missed one then, maybe smell. Yeah, smell. So once you really connect to your senses, you will then reconnect to your body. So you're getting out of the head and into the body. In yoga, what we ask you to do is to do deep forward folds, either standing or seated. So deep doesn't mean getting your nose onto your knees. That's not what yoga is about. This is taking a beautiful inhale, exhaling as far forward as you can without straining and rounding your back. Drop your chin to your chest and be there for as long as you can and breathe. Other ways that you can do it is standing up, deep forward fold, bend your knees. It's nothing about having great hamstrings or anything. Bend your knees as deeply, even if you need to lay your belly over your thighs, which is a beautiful way to do a standing forward fold. Stay there, take some breaths, maybe 5 or 10 breaths there. And as you slowly come up, so you don't get dizzy, make sure that you come up super, super slowly. The other way is to take deep seated twists. So sitting down, taking an inhale, always exhaling on the twist. And what's happening here is we're moving the energy around those 2 base chakras. So the root chakra and the sacral chakra are getting energy moving around. When we get energy moving around these chakras, we get space. When we get space, we have infinite potential, okay? So we need to create energy moving to create space, and then we need to have this infinite potential for the energy to be able to rise up and then continue rising up the spine. All right. The last one I want to speak to is fear. Fear is illusory. Fear is coming from the mind and the mind only. And again, it's informed by a lot of this violence and stuff that we don't have any control of, that are coming in through our senses. But it is 100% illusory. And so the fact is, the cool thing about that is that when we are fearful of something, we have created the illusion in our mind that we're fearful of something. We can uncreate it. We can deconstruct that and create another image. So what I like to say to people is, don't ask for, or don't meditate or ask for what you don't want. Meditate and ask for what you do want. So a great way to start to shift fear is, again, remove yourself from the stuff that you can't change. There's this beautiful thing called the circle of influence and the circle of concern. You can have concern over things, but you don't have any influence over them. So be really, really careful about your energy and how you're actually expending that energy and what information you're taking in. You know, when we take food into our body digests that and takes the nourishment from it, and then it excretes what it doesn't need, okay? If you think about information, we take information in, we take what we need, what makes sense to us, and then we eliminate what doesn't. If we put too much shit food in our body, right, over time, our body is going to become overwhelmed, and we're not going to be able to eliminate all of the crap. Some people get constipated. That's a definite sign of being stuck in the root chakra. If over time we put too much information in that is overwhelming and not of great quality or not serving us, we're going to have trouble trying to eliminate that. And when we have a build up of this information in us, it's going to create fear, okay? Because we're not shifting, we're not eliminating that energy. So when we bring food in, our body digests that and uses it as energy. When we bring thoughts in, our body uses that as energy. Thoughts are just energy. Read Big Magic from Elizabeth Gilbert. She's written a fantastic book about that thoughts are just that. They are just energy. And because they're just energy, we can change them. The physicist, Jordan Pasquale, says that what we pay attention to will, just by observing something, we can change it. We know that because of the double slit experiment. You can Google that. What we pay attention to, we can actually change the outcome of in a physical sense. So that's been proven by science. So we can also do that in a mental sense. What we pay attention to, we can change. We can observe something and then we can change it. So this is witnessing our thoughts. This is becoming the observer of our thoughts. So even going all the way back to anxiety, to our panic attacks, when we're moving from the lower mind to the higher mind, that's asking us to observe our thoughts. Having a look at this situation, saying, well, I did get bitten by a dog when I was a young girl, but not all dogs are the same. I'm going to approach this dog with caution. Of course, we need to keep ourselves safe, but at the end of the day, this is a different situation, so there may be a different outcome. So back to fear. All fear is born from love. When we fear something so greatly, it's because we are in love with it so much that we don't want to lose it. So even the dog situation, we love our bodies so much, we don't want to lose a hand, for example. I've spoken about this before. When a terrorist is killing people, it's coming from a place of fear that their mistaken mind, or perhaps in their truth, is that their religion or their philosophy or their politics is right. and that they fear losing that because they love it so much. They're so attached to it. So beyond the love for something is this attachment, and we really have to look at the ideas that we're attached to, and are we prepared to let go of them so that we can let love come in and overcome fear? Because the answer to fear, overcoming fear, is love. Always 100% is. If you fear something, you need to be able to turn it around and see where the love is, and then unravel that story. So fear, for sure, 100% happens when we project ourselves into an imagined future. If we are present in this moment, rock solid, there is absolutely no chance that we can be in fear unless someone has a gun at your head, okay? Or you are in the situation. If you are in a situation where you are under threat, leave. Do whatever you can to save yourself. Fear is important to keep us safe. For example, there's fear of there's two different types of approaching fear, though. You can be walking along a path and see a snake, and then fear will kick in, and that's a good thing because you want to get away from the snake as far as you can. But not going for a walk in nature in case you step on a snake is a very different thing. And fear creates boundaries, right? So we project ourselves into an imagined future. I used to live in a town of 1,200 people. I have a fallout with somebody, I'd be too fearful to go down the street for a long time. And so I create this boundary about going down the street so that I keep myself safe. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, because the reality is once you confront your fear in those situations, the reality is nowhere ever near as bad as the fear itself. The fear is all consuming. So I'm not talking about fear to keep you safe, like the incident of stepping on a snake. I'm not talking about putting yourself in harm's way and just like, I fear nothing, That's not cool. Fear is there to keep you safe, for sure. But we've become so overwhelmed in our lives now that we are often in a constant state of fear without even knowing it. And I would say if you've created boundaries in your life everywhere, then you've got a fair amount of fear going on. And, for your sake, so that you can shine and start living the life that you were meant to, I would ask you to, just break the walls down of those boundaries when you feel safe to do so, and meet some of your fears. Start with little ones. So if your fear is going for a walk in nature because you might get bitten by a snake, put some protective clothing on and be scared and do it anyway. To have that attitude to life. Be scared and do it anyway. I've made some major shifts in my life over 54 years, and I'm not brave. I was scared and I did it anyway. And that's what I think people need to do, because we are born on this planet to shine. We are born to do a job, that's for sure. And some of you are already doing it, but to be in a state of fear, to be in a state of lockdown, to be caught in these lower chakras of this victim energy is desperately, desperately sad, because it doesn't need to happen. We remember what I said at the beginning. You are not depression. You are not anxiety. You are not panic attacks. You are not fear. You have or do experience depression, experience anxiety, experience panic attacks, experience fear. It's about how we look at these situations, how we witness them, how we excavate back to when we first started to feel this shift from peace. And it could have been when you were a little 2-year-old. It could have been last year. But for sure there will be a time when you've shifted from that place of peace. And we need to start doing the work to unravel it, to take ourselves away from from that pain and really unpack it and see it for what it was. And unfortunately, it's such a hard lesson for us all to learn, but the way that we've misinterpreted our mind at the time, and it's set a whole pattern of thinking up for our lives, really, particularly when it's come from early childhood. So that's my offering today. I'm available for anyone if they want to ask a question. I think there's a little comment section. I understand these are really deep topics, and I'm really open to anybody emailing me or contacting me via Facebook. I'm Kate Dubois with a C, CateDubois. I have 2 Facebook platforms, or 3 actually. I've got Kate Dubois, Healing the Divine, my own personal page, and then I have a page for all of my fans that like to see this sort of work. But yeah, anybody has any questions, let me know. All of this information and more is in my ebook, so if anybody was interested in that, you can send me a message afterwards or post it in the comments. And I'm really happy to be of service to anybody, or as I said, just shoot me a message. So any questions? No? Thanks very much for being here today. I hope that it's brought you some a little more understanding about how depression can occur. And again, as I said before, this is coming from my perspective, my experience, my knowledge of Ayurveda, my knowledge of Hatha Yoga philosophy, and it's certainly come from many people that I've been working with and seeing the results of them understanding how they've got to where they are and being able to unravel and unpack that. And again, I'm really happy to share my playlist with you on Spotify for the chakra dance for moving energy in that way. So namaste and thank you.